so happy we alive.
But a group of physicians and biomedical scientists, some of them fools, some of them people with justified concerns, some of them wholly corrupt, began saying, wait a minute, you've made a mistake. Marijuana is more damaging to the lungs. Marijuana harms the immune system. Marijuana will delay sexual maturity. Marijuana will interfere with pregnancy. Marijuana will harm the fetus in pregnant women. And they said these things over and over and over again, and they convinced people it was true. Their data was crap. One of my favorites was I was on a radio interview with one of the most prominent anti-marijuana physicians in the United States, and he said to the interviewer, he said, and marijuana harms the immune system. And I said to the interviewer, ask Dr. Voth, what are his data? What's his proof that marijuana harms the immune system in humans? And I knew quite well that there's only one study done in 1971 which was faulty and has never been repeated. And so he started giving the list of names, and he gave 2 or 3 very prominent names. This was after he was ordered to do so by the radio interviewer. Said, I think Dr. Morgan's right, you should list some names. So he listed some names, and I said, not one of the scientists that he's referred to did any studies in humans. And the interviewer said, well, what about this? What about Dr. Cabral? And I said, that's a guinea pig study. And it was, of course. And so what some scientists did was to give enormous doses of marijuana or pure THC to animals and then test some function of the immune system, some function of other issues. And the doses were monstrous. They were 1,000 times the human psychoactive dose, sometimes more than 1,000 times the human psychoactive dose. And if you give that much material to an animal, you're likely to disrupt some system, because after all, this is a biologically active chemical. So, but there were no studies in humans that showed any impairment in the immune system. And there are no studies in humans that show delay in sexual maturation. There are no studies to show that marijuana smoking alone is a great risk in pregnancy. So that's what Marijuana Myths, Marijuana Facts is about. That we tried to line up the common claims of the people who said we can't decriminalize marijuana and we have to keep up our battle because it's so dangerous, and we tried to show that it wasn't dangerous. I talked to you about the fact that heavy marijuana smokers have more pulmonary damage, and of course there is a danger to marijuana smoking, and the biggest danger is quite clear, which is that for a period of 2 to 3 hours after you smoke this material, you're a little bit goofy, you're a little bit stupid, and you're not as finely tuned as you would be if you were completely sober. So marijuana smokers have the real responsibility of protecting themselves and protecting others when they're high. So marijuana smokers should not drive, they should not babysit, they should not enter into marital contracts, they should not go to school, they should not try to learn anything. If they're going to have fun, good, fine with me. But they have to protect themselves and others from psychoactive effects and psychoactively induced mistakes, the same as alcohol users. So that's the danger of marijuana, a danger which is controllable by socialization, education, and legalization.
Mm-hmm. You know, the wonderful thing is hearing you elucidate so clearly these basic principles and truths, and then at the same time, I feel this kind of sense is that it's as if you're a voice in the wilderness, speaking the truth, and I mean, it seems like the same old steamroller just keeps on, you know, shoving out the same old crap. I mean, there's the same old shit on the TV, the same old bullshit.
Lynn and I talk about this all the time, that we actually are, arrogant's not the right word, but we think we made a difference. We think when the drug warriors get up to spew out the crap, particularly those who have spend a career spewing out crap, they kind of look around them and they don't spew it out at the same rate. They tend much more now to move toward the metatoxicity. It's the new marijuana. It's the gateway. It's the impact on the motivation of our children. These are all things which really have no proof, the same as the other stuff, but they're a little bit less likely to now claim that marijuana causes gynecomastia in males, breast enlargement. They're a little less likely to claim that if a woman smokes a joint during pregnancy, she'll harm her children. So we think we've made a slight impact, but and of course the language of propaganda now in almost all fields is scientific language, and so we have, at least in some instances, caused the scientists on the other side, we think, to behave a little bit better.
How about, like, though, have you ever had any experience, like, just last year, Lester Grinspoon acknowledged that he smoked marijuana on occasion for a number of years, and with discretion, I'm sure. And then, just within a matter of weeks or months after his making that statement, they're trying to take his medical license away.
They failed.
Foundation for a Drug-Free America.
Yeah, they failed incidentally. Yeah, there was a particular anti-drug group that wrote to the Massachusetts board.
Have you personally been harassed? Or
Yeah, I've been personally harassed a lot. I never have made very much of my own smoking history because it's so modest. I told people, as I had to in a federal court once, that I had smoked marijuana. I'd hoped to be the first person in Cincinnati, Ohio, ever to smoke marijuana. So I smoked it in 1961. And over the years, I have smoked occasionally. Went through a long period of time in which I stopped entirely. And I think I'm not a very good poster boy for marijuana because it never meant very much to me. I actually smoke very rarely. And in recent years, almost not at all. But the fact that I continued to be a marijuana critic in the context of a medical school setting and an official setting led me to be harassed a lot. I've survived it all pretty well. But, the editor of the Merck Manual once received 50 letters in a very short period of time and a number of phone calls saying that my chapter in the Merck Manual on the effects of marijuana were so inaccurate that I was harming people. The Merck Manual is the most widely purchased medical textbook in the world.
Right.
And so I've written the chapter on drug abuse for the last 4 editions, I think, 16 years. And so suddenly, the editor, who had been my friend for over a decade, called me and says, "What is happening here?" And what was happening was a very concerted attack on me with DuPont and Nahas and Richard Schwartz and the parents of the Illinois Drug Federation and Eric Voth and all sorts of people who decided that they could get me by writing to the editor of the Merck Manual and writing to the chief executive officer of Merck International to try to get them to fire me from writing these lies. Now, the editor was stunned by this. He didn't know what the hell was going on, but he behaved in a responsible editorial fashion. He asked me to respond to their claims. Again, the immune claims, the amotivational claims, the lung cancer claims. And so because I'd said marijuana is essentially not a very toxic substance. And so he then took my replies, sent them out to a group of outside readers, and asked them to respond, and they responded saying that they felt that I was largely correct. They might have said it a different way. There were some criticisms, but not anything leading him to fire me or change the text. Now, that was a little difficult to go through, and I had to deal with it. But again, that's not the kind of oppression of having your license attacked. I also I was a member for many years of the American Society of Addiction Medicine.
Very interesting.
I was a founding member.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And
I didn't know.
It was very interesting because I stayed.
Talk about a cash cow.
There you go.
You're a poor boy.
There you go.
You stayed with it.
And I stayed with the group. I had some friends who I thought were really quite decent people trying to help those with alcohol and drug problems. But also, I had this position on the program committee. ASAM operated in this interesting fashion. The program committee chose the workshops and the lectures for the next year's meeting. And we would actually hash things out in the program committee. And every year I proposed a workshop which had a drug policy reform theme. Everybody knew I was doing it. Everybody in ASAM, by and large, knew that I was a drug policy reformer, and many people liked and respected me for it. But then, I guess about 5 years ago, I arranged a seminar on medicinal marijuana. And I suddenly came under enormous attack from a